15 months pass. 15 whole months pass since the New Year's Eve ball at Shepford Manor, in which Lord Adam Prideaux entered a carriage and rode off. He has not been seen since. The Prideaux extended family, including Miss Lambert, including Chambers, you have spent 15 months wondering where the lord of the house, the brother, the father, has gone. This evening, you are all sitting down to dinner. You are in the dining room at Shepford Manor. You've had food brought through by the servants. You've had drinks, wine, water provided for. This is a regular occurrence. This is almost a sense of repetition. You have met once every single month, 15 times. This is the 15th dinner you've had together with the singular purpose of discussing the absence of Lord Adam Prideaux. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do, collectively, is all give me a reputation roll, please. The disappearance of Lord Adam Prideaux on New Year's Eve has possibly had an impact on each of you in your own social circles. I'm going to ask one by one what those rolls are, and then depending on the outcome, well, actually, I have a role in mind. I'm looking at the reputation losses table that goes from a 1d2 to a 1d20, and I hate to say it, if you fail this roll, it's going to be a 1d8 from your reputation skill. Now, there is later on an opportunity within the game, within the Regency Cthulhu, to earn back reputation through an extreme success, perhaps with etiquette or some such skill. But for now, I'd like to ask the members at the table how their reputation is. Reverend, shall we start with you, please? Reverend George Prideaux.
Reverend George Prideaux sadly failed his reputation roll, getting 66 out of 65. He would like to ask the keeper, we are playing Call of Cthulhu, and could he spend some luck to sneak that failure to, luckily, somebody put in a good word for him, down to a pass.
Absolutely.
Keep his discretion.
No, absolutely. That's a done thing. Someone stepped in your behalf, and they have, especially within your kind of church circles, they have just managed to clean up the blemish that was about to stain your reputation. Absolutely. Luckily. Charlotte Lambert, could you please let me know how your reputation stands?
Not great, to be honest.
Okay.
I have rolled 56 against 27. So unfortunately, Charlotte has been trying very hard to get back into the good graces of society and cast off that terrible marriage she made to a French poet. But people obviously have long memories.
And
maybe people think she's getting a bit above herself now, kind of trying to redeem herself. But it's not
the
working.
Disappearance of Lord Adam Prideaux that's brought that story back into circles. Because of your faux pas at the ball, where you talked to the drunk gentleman at the ball that was trying to talk to Anastasia, and you talked about Adam Prideaux leaving on sudden business, your name is kind of attached to that slanderous moment. And the hint of scandal that's rippled over the last 15 months, it's brought back the other stories that people had nearly forgotten. Nearly. Could you roll 1d8 for me, please, and tell me how much your reputation detracts by?
Okay. 6.
Ooh.
Painful.
They do not have a nice word to say about you at the moment. Can I ask what your reputation score is?
It was 27, so now it's 21.
Okay. That isn't great. As a reputational situation within the Regency Call of Cthulhu, that does put you in the category of society's opinion as a bad sort, which...
They know me well.
They do indeed. They've definitely heard the story. I think I've heard it twice, which does mean that you have your social dice rolls. They are with a penalty die.
Ouch.
So if you could remember that for me, and please remind me when I get carried away with
Okay.
the story and forget to ask.
I will do.
That takes us over to the son, Thomas Prideaux. Could you let me know how your reputation roll was?
Thomas rolled a 41 under 65, like water off a duck's back.
Excellent.
Bad news, bad tales.
Do you know,
Thomas survives.
is it the practice of having the odd gamble here and there? Not even just cards with, Lord Cosgrove and the other gents. It's anything and everything. Just betting on walking down the street and this is it, that's it. You just, the reputation of scandal seems to have bypassed you because you're so perhaps well practiced now at
Absolutely, I think
slopey shoulders.
It's what comes with the breeding and the territory here.
Wow.
That Thomas just shrugs it off and manages to change the subject with a smile and a charm and disarms the dissenters.
Absolutely. Could you remind me what your reputation score is now? Sorry, it was 60.
At 65.
Okay, you are still very much in the credit to the ton, high society. So you actually get a bonus dice. You are above the social norm of standing, so there is a bonus die for you. Reverend George.
If they only knew the truth.
If only they knew the truth. I forgot to ask you, Reverend, what your current reputation score is.
65, same as Thomas.
Of course it is. The family stands tall. And Anastasia, could I ask you to tell me about your role, please?
Indeed. So we have a lovely 97 out of a 59. So very much a failure, but not quite a fumble. Which makes a lot of sense because ever since that fateful night, Anastasia has been somewhat obsessed with the disappearance of her father and might have been asking around more than is socially acceptable. Probably mostly staff and lower class people rather than the people who would determine her reputation. But also she has been making a lot of attempts to find her father compared to everyone else. So it makes sense that she would have taken a bigger hit in her reputation by...
So almost by being so inquisitive, you've propagated the actual story and the rumours that might be surrounding your father because you've been so persistent in asking.
Possibly. She was trying to not do that, but you know her.
So, sorry, it was 92 over...
97 over 59. And
97.
then I rolled a 6. So that is... her reputation is now lowered to 53.
Well, on 53, I can tell you that society's opinion of you, Anastasia, is that, prepare yourself, you are perfectly average and respectable, which is actually quite wonderful because it means you don't have a penalty die or a bonus die. Your reputation is intact, although obviously in this world, reputation is a fluid thing. So, you're sitting down to dinner. You've had the first course come through, and it was a quite a lovely starter. It was a duck with plum sauce, and there's red wine going around. There's obviously water as well, in case anybody doesn't drink. Reverend, I'm looking at you, and you are mid-conversation, or not. What's the atmosphere between the family?
When she's around
Silence.
Family, Anastasia has been expending a lot of her energy trying to figure out what happened, and it's been 15 months now, so she's slowly coming back to her former self. There's been a lot of grieving, a lot of confusion. She hasn't been quite herself in general, and I feel like that manifests in either taking a lot of rest or being very compliant and like weirdly pleasant to be around because she just wants her life to be easier around her family.
Okay, so she's compensating for the absence of her father.
Yeah, so she would be quite silent, but also not confrontational and not too involved in whatever's being said.
So I'm going to ask you this, Anastasia, then. I know you've mentioned that you've been very engaged in your father's disappearance and talking perhaps to those who aren't of your social standing, those beneath your social standing, to see what they know. They often know more than we give them credit for. what is it in the last 15 months that has predominantly occupied your time?
As I said, primarily trying to figure out what happened, especially for the first 6 to 8 months.
And have you been anywhere? Did you go anywhere? Is this I'm based at home and I'm reaching out with letters of requests?
Anastasia is well connected to her own staff, so she would have asked all of them. They already know anyway, so there's no danger to her reputation from them. And then after that, she has connections downtown as well, where she sells her various findings the rest of the time. So I think she would have tried to speak specifically to people that she trusts.
Okay.
But
That's
also,
great.
you know, sometimes if getting desperate, she might have reached out to more unsavory types as well.
So let me ask you, she may have sold a few items, some wares that she has procured.
Those that she got from that lovely, lovely gentleman on New Year's Eve.
I was just about to ask, Stephen Jenkins.
Jenkins, love him.
Although sometimes he refers to himself as Stefan because he's trying to be slightly more intriguing than he actually is. But did you sell I believe it was a cigarette case and a pocket watch?
I would have tried to. I feel like she would have tried to maybe pass it on a couple of different hands because they are engraved, so she doesn't want it traced back to her, ideally.
One day when you come home between this New Year's Eve and where we are now on the 5th of March, 1812, as I say, 15 months on from the New Year's Eve party where Laura and Prideaux disappeared, you actually receive a letter. One of the staff runs up to your room, one of the younger members of staff. Miss.
Come on in, please.
And you just see a little head poke around the corner and a little hand holding out a letter. Miss, this letter came for you, miss.
Oh, thank you very much. And she hands like a coin or a sweet or whatever's available.
Thank you, miss. And the young little boy just kind of hands over the letter, and then you hear him scampering down the corridor, running back most likely to a parent who works in the kitchen or with the serving staff. You have a letter in your hand, and it is addressed to my dearest Miss Anastasia.
Okay. Anastasia. I'm getting confused now. Are we doing Anastasia? Or are we doing Anastasia? Or is that person saying Anastasia?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. Stefan also depends on who he talks to.
Okay. So, having sensed something about this letter, I think Anastasia would call Charlotte over because she wakes up. She gets some anxiety when it comes to communications like that, so she'd like some emotional support.
So it isn't long, Charlotte, before you're able to be called. You're very, very close with Anastasia. So when she calls for you, it's you're a door away, a room away. You find your way in there, and before you is Anastasia holding a letter, looking slightly anxious.
A letter? Who's that from?
Charlotte, please do read this for me.
Oh dear, is it one of those?
I think it's one of those again, and I'd rather not.
Don't worry. All right, let's have a look. Oh, guess who? Guess who it's
Mr.
from?
Mr. Jerkins? I don't know.
Yes, it is. Shall I read it? Do you want me to? All right.
Please put one of your funny voices on. It amuses me.
Very well. To my dearest Miss Anastasia, I can only apologize for my behavior at your New Year's ball. I conducted myself in a vulgar manner and only wish that you would allow me the chance to redeem myself in your eyes and that of your family. although I would ask that you keep this letter between the two of us, so as not to concern your father or your brother. How dare he? What a cad. Please, name the time and the place where I can begin to make amends, and possibly in time earn a place in your good graces. Kindest regards, Mr. Stephen Jenkins. Oh dear. Keep this letter between the two of us. Who does he think he is? That's just... I don't know. That's very rude. We'll find you somebody nice, darling. Don't you worry. We'll find you somebody kind and rich with an imagination.
Speaking of looking for someone rich and with a wonderful imagination, Charlotte, what have you been looking for in your time in these 15 months that have passed? And you are very close to the Prideaux family, so the disappearance of Lord Adam Prideaux, it's affected everybody, yourself included. But what have these 15 months brought for you?
So, over the past 15 months, Charlotte has been trying to be as useful as she can and as helpful as she can to the family. She's the oldest woman in the household. She's a member of the family, although she's not quite exactly at the social level to be considered the lady of the house, because technically speaking, she is an employee. But that said, I think that she's taken over the de facto running of the home in terms of overseeing domestic affairs, speak to the housekeeper about all those kind of domestic issues that the lady would have the running of, such as approving the household accounts, perhaps, if George and Thomas are happy with that. She's come to rely very strongly on Chambers and found him a source of great support. She's also been being as much of a support to Anastasia as she possibly can. She's been trying to make amends for her scandalous past, but clearly it's not really working in the minds of the local society. Privately, she's not sorry at all that she ran away with a French poet, but she's just sorry that she ruined her reputation in doing it. But she's determined to play the game, and that she isn't able to set the rules of said game in the world that she lives in.
So I'm going to ask you, Charlotte Lambert, you've been running this household. You've been keeping an eye on everything that's going on. You saw that Anastasia had this letter from Mr. Stephen Jenkins. Is that something, if Mr. Stephen Jenkins continues this progression, that you are happy with, or is it something that you would like to talk to him about? How do you feel about that?
I think she's very protective of Anastasia. She's determined to find her a good match, but it will be a good match, both in terms of what society would think of as a good match and somebody who's right for Anastasia, because she is very fond of her. And this Stephen Jenkins, he sounds not at all appropriate, even if he is rich.
Can you give me a spot hidden, please? These are in the months that are passing. This is one event. You are keenly keeping an eye out for another letter, a knock on the door, an interaction from Mr. Jenkins.
And that was a failure, sadly. 43 against 35.
There is a knock on the door. Before the servants get there, you've been working in one of the studies, the lounges, doing the books, and you have got into the habit. I think everybody's on edge because Lord Adam Prideaux's not there, and anybody knocking on the door could be him, could be someone with information. And in this moment, Charlotte, it's you who runs to the door. What do?
I will open the door, unless there's some kind of... Is there any sort of like spy hole that you can see out at this point? Or have those not been invented yet?
I don't think they've been invented yet, but I don't see why you couldn't have one if you didn't want one. Give me a luck roll. Let's see if there is one.
Oh, right. I'm not even certain what my luck is. Am I lucky? Oh, I have 65 luck. Yes, extreme success.
You've got a really good one.
8 versus 65. Way.
Very
crack in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a porthole, like a ship's porthole.
Fabulous.
No, there is a small hole with a little brass cover on your side, so you can keep it covered. Obviously, you don't want people looking in, but you remove the brass cover, you look through, and did you say you failed your spot roll?
I failed the spot hidden, yeah. 43 against 35.
43 against 35. Okay, so you Move the little brass cover. You look through the hole, and there's no one there. But someone knocked on the door.
This is puzzling. Is it somebody very short?
Unless you have a see-through door roll, I'm not sure I can give you the information.
I will, in that case, being slightly puzzled, she will open the door.
And as you open the door, you see no one. But there is a letter on the doorstep. And it is addressed to the delightful Miss Anastasia.
Heaving a very quiet sigh to herself, she will bend down and pick it up with just a finger and a thumb and kind of holding it out at arm's length from her. She will dejectedly walk up the stairs, and she's intending to read it herself if she can beforehand, just to check that there's nothing improper there.
So if you're opening the letter yourself, reading as you go up the stairs, could you read it out loud to us, please?
To my dearest Anastasia, I take your silence as a misunderstanding of my apology and willingly offer it to you again and again and again. I understand that your father went missing, and I can only offer you my moral support if you would allow me to come and see you. I would love to walk the gardens of your home once again and console you on his departure. I have no doubt that if your brother is absent in his finances and your uncle's head is in the stars or the heavens, I can find a way to occupy your time. Reply to me. Meet me in secret if you must. Yours faithfully, Mr. Stephen Jenkins. Charlotte is not impressed.
Okay. What, may I ask, does Charlotte do?
I think she would feel duty-bound to tell Anastasia about the letter. She's not going to keep it to herself. But I think we may now have reached the point where she needs somebody to have a stern word with this Mr. Jenkins, potentially the Reverend, or Thomas.
Speaking of the Reverend, we will ask him in these 15 months of, I imagine, agonizing worry, consternation about the disappearance of your brother, the father of your niece and nephew. Reverend, what is it that you're doing in these 15 months?
Well, the Reverend is enjoying a rather nice dinner with a glass of red wine. Of course he drinks. But also, can I just check, that letter arrived a few months prior to this dinner?
Yes, so these letters are arriving within their 15-month gap. The first one we could say is, let's say, March of 1811. The second that Charlotte has just picked up, let's say that is July of 1811.
Okay, so before the New Year's Eve dinner.
The dinner you're having now, that you are together in present day, is on the 5th of March in 1812. But the New Year's Eve dinner, that was the New Year's Eve ball. Sorry, that was the going from 1810 into 1811. It was the dawn of the Regency era beginning.
Marvelous. Okay. So yes, he is enjoying the dinner. He looks across the table at the space that he insists be laid for chambers. He realizes that they have all had a trauma, and this is why he's very glad that each one of them comes to this dinner respecting the bond they have of that New Year's Eve, where they were all together at the loss of Adam, the brother. In the 15 months, he has been dispatching chambers to have a look for who might have sold Adam the missing book. He has a rather nice book signed by the, sadly, ex-Prime Minister, is trying to track down this missing book that Thomas that it's indicated was in the library. We couldn't find it on the New Year's Eve. And when a book disappears at the same time as his brother, he's just trying to put two and two together. So he spent a lot of time doing that. The dinners have become more solemn as he has gone along. He is realizing he doesn't want to admit it, that something might have happened to his brother. He certainly hasn't made any contact with his father or his other brother. He is very much keeping the faith that Adam will return. He doesn't need any scandal to be brought on the family. he is very much trying to step up to be in Adam's place. So whereas he would be visiting, he eventually had to come and stay at the manor for a short while and was indebted to Charlotte to run the house, and is very happy to see it in good hands and be that kind motherly figure to Anastasia, and also Chambers keeping things running and, you know, getting a little bit closer to Thomas. So that allows the Reverend to stay that distance away from the family, maintaining that dignity and respect that they can rely on their elders, even if Adam isn't here. He is a little haunted when he comes back to the house. He does remember the noises he heard on New Year's Eve when Mr. Jenkins vanished from the garden without a trace. And he does wonder whatever happened to that poor soul, and whether that has any connection to the disappearance of Adam. It is all a bit of a mystery, and even after all this time, he is a little bit mystified at what is going on.
You mentioned at some point you were using Chambers to help you in some of this, whether it be searching the book or... can I ask, where is it you may have sent him in this particular moment? Or what is it that you may have sent him after?
Immediately, he's been sending him to the booksellers. So he might have been saying, here is a lovely book that Adam Prideaux gave to his brother George. Did he purchase anything else at the same time? Or might he have got this from another bookseller? And slowly going wider and wider and wider until he's just running out of places to go. You know, he hears from other servants that Anastasia is putting the feelers out to less reputable people, and he's quite pleased that she is exploring avenues that he possibly cannot, and thinks what a wonderful daughter she is being to Adam. But yes, that is the sort of thing. So slowly going out from Shepford over the months, trying to find any booksellers that might have had dealings with Mr. Adam Prideaux.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for I'm going to ask you for a luck roll, but I'm not going to tell you what the result means, because I just think it's fun. So could you give me a luck roll in sending Chambers out to uncover the origins of said book?
Marvellous. Well, Reverend Prideaux has a hard success, 15 versus 54 on his luck roll. So hopefully Chambers will come back with something more than a bill for horseshoes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Well, that brings us to the heir apparent sitting at the table, Thomas Prideaux. Sitting, you tell me, Thomas, are you sitting in your usual seat? Are you sitting in your father's seat? Where are you?
Thomas has been trying to wheedle his father's seat, probably for the past year. The pantomime of putting out a plate for father, and to be fair, the just downright disgrace of reputation of putting out a plate for a common footman at our table. But unfortunately, I have a feeling that Uncle George is stern and unmoved at this point, and begrudgingly, I think Thomas will be taking up his seat adjacent to his father's seat, but every so often glancing over and eyeing it up. But Thomas keeps his thoughts to himself as he downs his third glass of red wine. He's long since exhausted his arguments and has resigned himself to sitting next to his father's seat, but his eyes dart sideways throughout the meal. I think the past 15 months have been transformative for Thomas. He suddenly had an air of freedom about him, that he's no longer under his father's shadow, although that lurking feeling that Adam Prideaux is still out there somewhere. Thomas has obviously spent a lot of time in London. Unfortunately, again, Uncle George has put him in contact with his friend David, and a dull, clerical sort of chap, but Thomas is getting better and better at avoiding his company.
Can you give me a constitution roll, please, Thomas?
How much wine have I imbibed? That is a 55 over 50.
Okay, so you've had a few drinks, little bit, in your cups, a little bit sloshed here. Not too bad though. You're very good at this. This is something that you excel at, is having a drink. Unless I'm wrong, you tell me. But
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. In this moment, it's not the alcohol; it's your need to go to the loo.
Excuse me, uncle, sister, Mrs. Lambert. I must make my excuses. Nature calls, what?
And I'm assuming you remove yourself from the room?
Absolutely. Possibly slightly faltering step. Maybe taking the wine glass with me, to be fair.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
I think waste not, want not, and all that.
Okay, so you remove yourself from the table. Reverend, Anastasia, Charlotte, this is a common occurrence in the last few dinners. Few too many cups for Thomas. You have a moment without him in the room. What do you do?
George will sigh visibly and glance a look over to Charlotte and try and put a brave face on for Anastasia. Literally change the subject and say, "How are the dancing lessons, Anastasia? Are you progressing well, my dear?"
I
Charlotte gives an encouraging nod.
Good.
yes,
good.
yes, uncle. Of course. We're not doing my favorite dances, but it's good, I think.
Well, keep at it. You know, when your father's back, it'll be delightful if we are inviting him to a wedding that you are going to be leading a dance at. Wouldn't that be marvelous for him?
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Speaking of weddings, I think the time has come to have a word with a certain suitor of Anastasia's. I'm not happy with the letters that he's writing. They're almost improper.
What's that? There's been another letter? You didn't say.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I thought it best to not worry you too much with the content. He wants to meet her alone.
Oh.
Who is this? A suitable gentleman, I take it?
Not in the slightest. Stephen Jenkins.
At that name, the Reverend is going to stop and not quite drop his fork, but there's going to be a visible, shocked look on his face. And I'm sorry, whom did you say was sending letters?
Thomas, you've finished in the toilet, you're coming back out, you hear a knock at the door.
I think, in my current state, I'll wander over and shout something like, "Not today, thank you," leaning on the door.
There's another knock on the door.
Thomas grabs hold of the handle, pulls it open, and says, "Look, I don't know what you're wanting, but I'm afraid we're not in."
You open the door and there's no one there. There is, however, 2 envelopes.
What sort of rum do is this? Picks up the envelopes. Anything particularly odd about them?
One has the name Anastasia. The other doesn't, is a blank envelope. It's not empty, but there is no writing on the front of the envelope.
I think Thomas wanders back to the dining room. During the wandering, unsealing the wax seal from the blank envelope, and probably starts reading it as walking into the dining room. With the other envelope in hand, throws it onto the table. "Here, Stasia, we have a letter for you. Not quite sure who from. Secret admirer."
Thomas, your envelope contains just a few simple words, but there is also a card.
13 Luscombe Street. The book is here. Chambers. Reading them out loud, probably mental, quiet reading is not really feasible in the current drunken state of mind.
So Thomas has read that out loud?
Yes.
Anastasia, you have a letter, I believe, thrust into your plate.
I guess she will read it. Normally she would ask Charlotte, but she doesn't want to cause any fuss, but she is a little bit upset that she didn't tell her about it and personally before announcing it to the table, so she's going to take this one and read it herself.
Even if you are reading it to yourself, would you mind reading it out
Yeah,
loud
of
for us,
course.
please?
To the little untouchable princess Anastasia, I have requested your attention and you have ignored me. Your father would be ashamed of your inappropriate behavior and your mistreatment of a gentleman and stand-up figure within Hampshire society. I will no longer write you, but know that when you feel the pressure and discomfort of someone somewhere watching you, it will be me. I will not take this slight to my person lightly, and if you were a gentleman, I would challenge you to a duel. My deepest regrets, Mr. Stephen Jenkins. Well, we have created an enemy.
Wow.
Charlotte, can I see the other letter, please?
Are you sure?
Yes, thank you.
You ask for the other letter. I'm assuming Charlotte probably keeps them both together, letters 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Anastasia, you're now sitting at the dinner table with 3 letters in a rather contrasting level of communication from Mr. Stephen Jenkins, whilst Thomas is standing at the table with a note in hand that he read out loud with a rather mysterious quality. 13 Luscombe Street. The book is here. Chambers.
Thomas sits down in Adam Prideaux's chair and looks at the note and the card.
Reverend Prideaux looks at Thomas and say, I believe you are sitting in the wrong place, Master Thomas. Do you have something to share with us?
You sent Chambers off on that damn fool there and looking after the book, didn't you? He looks like he's found something, and I'll chuck the note and the card across. Damned if I can make head nor tails of it.
What is this book? Does it have to do with Papa?
Let me have a look. And he picks up the note. Is he aware of Luscombe Street? The bookkeepers at Luscombe Street?
I think with the research that you've done, it would be one of the particular bookshops that you have been acquainted with, even if it's just by name and location, whether you've been there personally or not.
Okay, that's good, that's good. And is this card within the letter?
It depends how Thomas hands it to you.
I think, yes, the card will have been folded up in the letter and thrown over towards you. So
Could you explain the card for us, Reverend?
He is looking at a picture of the hanged man, a Prideaux. Is that correct? Is that how you pronounce it? And with his little bit of astrology via his astronomy skill, might he understand what the meaning of the hanged man is to be?
You can certainly make a roll for me.
That is a 64 versus 60. So he seems familiar to him, but he doesn't quite make out what it means.
And he doesn't want to use some luck.
Not for a tarot card. He is a man of the cloth, after all.
You know it has some meaning. You can't quite put your finger on the meaning. But also, you remember somewhere in the seminary, someone talking about tarot and the dangers of tarot, the meaning of it, but also specifically how the card, the Hanged Man, some of your brothers in cloth actually talked about it being quite offensive, that even though it's a hanged man hanging upside down, they're hanging from a wooden structure not too unlike the cross that Jesus Christ was crucified upon. So you know, or you feel, that some of your brethren would react poorly to this.
He probably expects the bookshop Chambers has visited to be one of the backstreet bookshops that honest scholars probably wouldn't actually attend. But is his instructions to Chambers to bring the book or purchase the book. What might we have said Chambers is going to do?
You gave whatever instruction you did. Go and find the book, go and question the bookshops, but whether his instruction was to return home with information or not, what he's done is sent those words on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Or so you believe.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Chambers was more about looking. He was probably expecting him to find the bookseller that sold the book, not the actual book himself. So he will probably have to make arrangements to visit this bookseller in Luscombe Street to retrieve the book. So he will be expecting Chambers' return, and when he is able to, he will make a visit to the bookshop himself.
Just as you're pondering on that thought of visiting the bookshop yourself, wondering why Chambers isn't here, obviously, you hear a knock at the door.
Oh dear. Is this a night for visitors? Is there a servant around at all?
There is if you call one, but usually on these evenings where you're sitting down talking about Lord Adam, you often have them bring dinner in and then disappear, so you can talk in relative peace. But if you'd like one, if you were to shout or move to the side of the room and ring the bell, you'd be able to bring a servant to your attention if you require.
He'll probably be more discreet and glance a look at Charlotte to perhaps, if she's closest to the door, perhaps to go and investigate.
And Charlotte will dab her mouth with a napkin and stand up and go off and open the door.
Okay. You obviously make your way out, down the hallway. You've left the dining room door open, I presume, as you think you'll be returning.
Yep.
And you go to the front door. May I ask if you look through the spy hole or if you just open the door?
Oh, she'd look through the spy hole, especially because it's evening and presumably after dark.
Then you see a gentleman standing there.
Ah. Do I know this gentleman?
You do not. Mr. Well, I won't even introduce you, kind sir. Would you just describe, just through the spy hole, what Miss Lambert is able to see?
Absolutely. So you see a tall, thin gentleman with very high arched eyebrows and quite wide eyes. There's something almost owlish about his expression. He's dressed not unfashionably, but certainly he's not wealthy. He looks to be some sort of clerk or something. He's holding a leather folio of papers and an envelope that he is proffering.
Charlotte is mildly surprised to see somebody like this on the doorstep, but he looks respectable enough, so she will open the door.
Good evening, miss. Please excuse the lateness of my arrival. My name is Burrows, Christopher Burrows. I work for Mr. Aldworth.
Mr. Burrows, please, come in. I'm Charlotte Lambert.
Thank you, Miss Lambert. Charmed, I'm sure. The Prideaux family. I have a letter for them. And he proudly holds up the envelope. It is spotless, uncreased, and he almost glowing the way he's holding it. He's very proud of it.
Well, thank you very much. Who is this from? From you, or an employer of yours?
Why, from Mr. Aldworth. As I said, the great lawyer. That's who I work for, miss.
Oh, of course. Please, would you like to come through to the dining room? We're just finishing dinner.
Of course. I'm so sorry to have interrupted. And he'll stalk after you
quite all right.
with an almost slightly bird-like gait, I think. His head sort of bobbing a little bit, thin stick legs ticking along. The envelope comes first, like a bulwark.
He's a male pigeon.
You've uncovered how I write characters.
Charlotte's going to write a reply and put it in a little ring around his ankle and open the window and push him out to fly. Fly, little birdie, fly.
You wait till the rhino comes in later. So Burrows entered the room, followed you, Charlotte, into the dining room, as he said, proffering these papers in a very proud manner. Please continue. You are at the dinner table. This stranger has entered your dining room when you're having a rather private get-together. Please, tell me what happens.
Everyone, this is Mr. Burrows. He's just knocked at the door. He works for the legal firm.
George immediately dabs his face down, stands up and say, well, good evening to you, sir. You must have some business here. You're joining us this late in the evening. What might that be?
Yes, indeed. My apologies. And he'll make a quick head bob to everybody. I'm apprentice to Mr. Aldworth. This is just a side note, I'm very disappointed I'm not delivering another letter from Mr. Jenkins. This has been a very letter-themed episode.
I think there might be a title somewhere in there about a letter. There's got to be something in there for the episode title, hasn't there?
I thought they were going to be like the Hogwarts letters and start showing up in egg boxes and similar. But no, I have a different letter.
Under my top hat.
A letter
Indeed.
from Mr. Aldworth. Do I have the pleasure of addressing the Reverend Prideaux?
That is correct. Yes, I am the Reverend Prideaux himself.
And you must be Mr. Thomas Prideaux and the lovely Anastasia.
This is Master Thomas indeed, and yes, that is Adam's wonderful daughter, Anastasia.
Thomas will stand up now and give a curt nod to the new gentleman in the room. Letter for the family. Well, as heir apparent, I'm sure I can have a look at dealing with that. Thank you, Uncle.
Are you sure you can read it, boy? You've had quite a few wines. Perhaps you better sit down again before you fall down. Charlotte, would you be so good as to read the letter to us?
Very well.
He hands it over, but he does look at your hands just to make sure they're clean before you take it.
Letter from Mr. Aldworth, Esquire. Dearest kin of the Prideaux family, it is with my deepest regret that I inform you that your great-great-great-grandfather, Lord Matthew Prideaux, has passed. He lived a full life and was considered a pillar of the community here in Kingscombe, changing so many lives and bringing a true sense of love and life to the town. It is my unfortunate duty to add further sad news within this communication and inform you that another relative of yours, Philip Matthew Prideaux, has taken the news rather poorly and in an unexpected turn of events, through grief and upset, has renounced any claim on the Prideaux estate and fled the country under a cloud of sadness. As a result of these unfortunate events, I extend an invitation to you. I wish you to come to the Prideaux estate here in Kingscombe, South Devon, 3 days hence. I will be holding a reading of the last will and testament on this coming Friday, the 8th of May, 1812, for Lord Matthew Prideaux, who can finally rest in peace with his sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons in the everlasting afterlife. I appreciate the short notice and aim to assuage any fears you have by giving you the night to think about this request. Should you accept, this messenger is also the Prideaux estate carriage driver and will provide you with the transportation needed to reach Kingscombe. My many condolences to you and your family. Mr. D. Aldworth, Esquire.
Goodness me, Mr. Apprentice, you have brought us quite sad news. We will, of course, be attending, and as the hour is late, might we invite you to stay the night so we can make fresh our journey to, where is it, South Devon? Have we been to South Devon before? I'm not sure we have. But, yes, if you would do us the honour, Mr. Apprentice, of staying us here, and we shall accompany you back down to the Prideaux estate.
How very kind, sir. I should be honoured.
I'll go and speak to the housekeeper and ask her to send some maids to make up one of the guest rooms.
Thank you, Charlotte, thank you.
Please excuse me.
Lord Matthew. Now, I might be misremembering my family tree here, but I thought he died years ago. Surely Adam, my father, was Lord. Where did this other chap come from? This is
Can I
rather rum affair, if you ask me. I have to
ask
say.
for a history roll? And I'm going to say that the 3 Prideaux members, because Charlotte, you're very welcome to roll as well. You've been very close to the family for some time. But the 3 Prideaux members, you get to roll with a bonus die. When someone says, ooh, it's...
I just rolled a 0-2 under 18.
Wow. Okay.
Which I believe is an extreme success.
I believe you're right.
Mine
Okay, so
was
we
a
have an
failure.
extreme success. Charlotte Lambert has a failure. What was the roll, Charlotte?
72 versus 20. I think this might have been when I was off gallivanting around France and Germany.
Yeah, someone was talking family history and you were rerunning one of your fantastic folk tales in your heads and nodding along as if you were impressed. Anastasia?
I rolled a 15 out of 5, so my chances were very low in the first place.
And the good Reverend?
The Reverend, I'm almost tempted to let my first dice roll stay because it was 100 versus 30. But with that bonus die, it brings it down to a 10 versus 30 in history.
Wow,
So
okay.
a hard success.
Because with 100 over 30, then time and space folds in on itself.
It certainly does.
So I'm glad you're using the bonus die there. Okay, so we have an extreme success, we have a hard success, and then 2 failures. So when Thomas queries this line of Prideaux, this family line, it is the Reverend that catches your eye, Thomas. There is a moment where you both think on this. And Reverend, now you think about it, you are remembering, probably because you're thinking about Philip for the first time in a long time, because everything's been so centered on Adam, your oldest brother, Philip being your middle brother, and you being the middle brother and Philip being the youngest. You are remembering a couple of childhood holidays. Now, you've always remembered them as being at the beach, toes in the water. You've always remembered the seaside town, treats, from stalls on the pier, etc., etc. But now you've had that name in the letter, Kingscombe. That's right. It's not like what you would consider to be your immediate family, because you've never really been there with your immediate family. But there are these memories of being a young boy and being there in this quite sunny, beautiful place, wonderful coastline, fantastic place to go and spend some time and enjoy yourself. And it's very popular in society at the minute, is going off to the seaside, having a swim, feeling rejuvenated, and then coming back to the smog of London. It's something that you've seen high in society at the moment. But you can remember, you kind of remember Lord Matthew Prideaux as this old man, wheeled out in this rudimentary chair to watch everybody play at the seaside. Thomas, you also remember, and you're surprised your sister doesn't, having a family trip. It wasn't a stay, it was a day trip. Your father had to meet someone or speak to someone, and you remember going there as children, paddling in the water. You remember holding your sister's hand and standing ankle deep in the water with your fine trousers rolled up and looking out across the sun, dancing across the gentle roll of the waves. As you're remembering this, you're thinking as well, it's not the holiday that's bugging you, it's your father's study. It's his books. You've seen a book in there that has some kind of family lineage. You've seen the family lineage, and it was your father. Well, obviously you have your good uncle, the Reverend Philip Prideaux, your father's other brother, your father. They're of the same generation. Prior to those, in the 1800s, kind of prior to that, you had Richard Matthew Prideaux. Prior to that, you had in the kind of the 1770s, Oliver Matthew Prideaux. Prior to that, 1730s, you had Jonah Matthew Prideaux. And prior to that, in 1709, Lord Matthew Prideaux. Thank you for joining us for Act 3 of Cult and Culpability. Remember to visit us at www.miskatonicplayhouse.com. You can also visit the main stage at the Miskatonic Playhouse for other scenarios from the Miskatonic repository with links in the show notes below. Please remember to like, subscribe, and if you can leave a review, it makes a huge difference for other listeners to be able to find us and also enjoy our work. Until next time, when the curtain rises again.